So one type of polynomial equation that's often taught in algebra class is how to solve the sum or difference of cubes problem. So that's a binomial where both parts are a perfect cube. So in this video, I'm just going to talk about how to factor each of them, and then I'll briefly touch on how to solve each part if you wanted to go further. So I have two examples up here that we're going to work through. So the first one that we're going to factor completely is h cubed minus 64w cubed. So the way I like to do these is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of set up this little template here. So you want to first break down each component of the binomial so that way it's written as something being cubed. If you worked backwards, what number would you have to raise to the third power in order to get back the original problem? Well, h cubed is just h all cubed. And then 64 is really 4 cubed. And to get w cubed back, I would have to cube w. So I'm going to fill in those two blanks there. So now the way a sum or difference of cubes problem always factors is it factors into two groups, and it factors into a binomial and a trinomial. So for the binomial, the small group in the front, all you're going to do is you're going to take what we just wrote and you're going to drop the cubic powers off. So we're going to leave the sign the same in the middle, and we're just going to get rid of those powers of 3. So I'm just going to write the h and the 4w in here. So right, it's exactly the same except now they're not in little parentheses with a cube power on the outside. And then I have a little acronym that I like to use in my class to help us remember how to form the trinomial, the bigger group of this factoring, and it's called SOFAs. So I'm going to write it out as we do it and explain it, of course, right? So we're going to follow the SOFAs pattern. So the first S stands for square the first term. So you look at the little binomial that we just wrote, you look at for the first term, which is h, and you're going to square it. So we're going to get h squared. O stands for opposite sign. So we have a minus sign right now, so opposite is a plus. The F stands for front times back, or first times second, whichever one you want to use. And so that just means looking at your little group in the front of the equation, right? You want to take those two terms and multiply them together. So I'm going to multiply my first term of h by my second term, 4w. The A stands for always positive, so I'm going to put a plus sign there. And then the second part stands for, the second S I should say rather, stands for take that second group, that second part of the equation, so the 4w, and square it. So I'm going to write that in parentheses here, and it's a little squished, I get that. So let's zoom in and make that a little bigger. So we're going to leave everything in the first group the same, right? Nothing's happening here. So if I look through my second group, the trinomial, to simplify it, right? H squared is just h squared plus h times 4w is just going to be written as 4hw. I'm always positive, so plus sign. And then I have to square the 4 and the w for the last part. So 4 squared is 16, and w squared is w squared. And so there's my complete factoring. So since I'm just factoring, I would stop here. If I wanted to solve both parts, right, to solve, I would set each group equal to 0. And you're going to have to use the quadratic formula in order to solve the second group, that trinomial. Right, so we're just factoring, so I'm not going to go through that process, but if you need a refresher on how to use the quadratic formula, go back a couple of videos on this playlist and then you can check that out. So let's do one more as another example. I'm going to draw a little division bar here too, just to kind of separate the two problems. Okay, so now we're going to completely factor 64 plus 125a cubed. So same thing here, we're going to first break this down into what needs to be cubed in order to give us back those two numbers. So 64 is 4 cubed. I'm going to put a 4 in here. 125 is really 5 cubed, and to get a cubed back, I need to cube an a. So then we're going to follow that same process as the other one. So the first group is going to have the same sign in the middle, and we're just going to take what we just wrote and drop the exponents. So I'm going to put a 4 here with no cube, and a 5a in the second spot with no cube on it. And so then we're going to follow sofas. So I'm going to square the first term. So I'm going to square 4. Opposite sign is going to give me a minus sign. I'm going to do my first term times my second term. I'm always positive before the end, and then the last s is square that last term. So I'm going to take that to 5a and square the whole thing. And then we're just going to simplify. So this doesn't change. 4 squared is 16, and then minus 4 times 5 is 20a. Tack that a on there from the 5a, plus 5 squared is 25, and a squared is a squared. So there would be our factoring. And again, if you wanted to solve that, you would set both groups equal to 0, and for the